Welcome back to the Get Paid for Your Pad podcast. Eric and Kaye here. And to start, I want us to imagine two CEOs, two STR CEOs. One of them spends their entire Tuesday untangling a double booking and trying to make sure that they're not going to get bad reviews and everybody's happy and like doing all of the things. The other CEO spends his Tuesday closing a deal for a 20-unit hotel and is expanding his portfolio. So in this episode, we're going to talk about the different decisions and things you need to implement in your business to be that second CEO and not the first one. Eric, what is going on? How are you?
Hello. I'm excited about this because Jasper and I have been talking for years about the hectic host. And what we're recognizing and learning now by working with so many different hosts around the world through our RPM service is the difference between the people, the CEOs that are focusing on the things in their business that are pushing their company forward and going towards a goal versus the reactive side. So I just got off the phone with somebody who just joined RPM, super excited about this company. She's got an awesome portfolio, scaling like crazy, but she's in that hectic host spot where it was really hard for her to make decisions. And I'm like, hey, let's just jump on a call and talk about this. What's happening in your business? And she's like, well, I just took on 30 new listings and my so-and-so just quit and I have to move from one platform to another. And I'm still doing pricing. And she's like, I don't know how to make all these decisions. I helped her move to the decision of joining RPM. And I'm like, hey, now that we're taking over your revenue management, now we can help you focus on this part of the business. You can start seeing right away, like the individuals that are stuck in the constant problem solving mode. It's so difficult to make decisions on where to go and how to solve that. So anyway, I'm excited about diving into this because it's something that not only do we see in the industry, we experience it from time to time. And then something that I'm learning now by watching companies in this industry and outside this industry. I always used to think like a hectic host was because it was like a lack of experience or lack of systems and all of that. But I also believe that once you solve all of that and then you start hitting different levels in your business, it unlocks these other challenges. And it's all kind of the same stuff of like problem solving and leading and moving and all of that. So anyway, I'm excited to dive into this and kind of chat about this. So
Heck yes. Yeah. It's the difference between running your race on a treadmill versus being out in like actually making progress forward along a
yeah.
path, like running a marathon, for example. How would somebody know if they are being overly reactive, overly hectic in their business? What situations would pop up on a regular basis?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is as CEOs and business owners, even team leads, right? It's like getting into the position of understanding where your time is going. In the hospitality industry, we have to be reactive, right? We have to react to any issue that's coming up so we can over deliver and resolve it for the guest. So we're in a 24/7 business, but the difference is the reactiveness of all of these problems coming up. And then it's relying on you as an individual to solve it all. And then most of the time, when you're resolving it from memory versus a system or a process, that's where the hectic host, that chaos comes from, is because you're reacting from memory. And if you're reacting from memory and you haven't done it a million times in a row in the way that you want to solve it, you'll just react in the fastest negative way. So we want to kind of remove that. And like, that's something that we're always trying to work on. And like, I'm always looking at for our businesses of like, where are we reacting? What are the things that are constantly coming up? And then do we have a system in place? And then do we have somebody owning that system? So I think the biggest thing is like, what's coming up in your businesses, who's owning it? And then are you responding or reacting from a place of process and system versus memory and emotion? Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
yeah. Yeah, that does. And I mean, to be transparent, we deal with this all of the time, or like we're constantly getting better at it over time. You were for the longest time, I think maybe just a month or two ago, you were still managing a lot of the customer service calls during the day. Like we just didn't have the team in place yet, but you always held that vision of, I shouldn't be doing this. This is not CEO level activities for me to be spending a big chunk of my day on. So, what can we do to systemize it to bring in team, bring in ownership and agency? That's huge. I think it comes down to if you, as the CEO, are the primary bottleneck in your business, to making money and growing and doing those things, you really have to take a hard look at the overall structure of your business and make
Yeah.
sure that you're moving in a better direction than that.
And let me touch on like the customer service thing. Cause like when we first launched Freewyld, I wanted to be in customer service. I wanted to be customer facing so I can understand who's coming to the properties, what are their needs, how do we communicate, how are we solving problems. So I was excited about that, of diving in and learning who our guest avatar is and then developing our way of response and all of that. But then it got to a point where I forgot the mission of understanding, and then there's this point where it stops being exciting and then becomes routine. Like then I realized like I was reacting to things frequently. I'm like, man, like we don't have a lot of listings, right? So it's like it's that when you see certain things pop up, you got to start focusing on like, okay, what is the system here? Where's the bottleneck? So yeah, so we spent some time hiring some really incredibly talented people who love customer service, who took over, and now we get to lead the system and the vision, and now we're fine tuning that, and it's getting better and better, and it's freaking awesome. You see the machine come alive.
That's such a good point. I think I'm kind of jumping ahead of ourselves here a little bit, but I've noticed the same thing in marketing as I often need to do the task first myself a few times to really establish what the standard is. And then it makes it a little bit easier to delegate and to bring support in. So I think that's really key. But before we get into how to actually fix this, because like I said, getting ahead, what is the danger of this? Like, why does it matter if the CEO is in the weeds and doing all of these things? What does it cost?
That's a great question. Look, at the end of the day, it comes down to where you're taking your company and what your vision is, right? So if you want to scale and you want to develop a business that's not relying upon you and your hours that you're putting into your business, you got to figure out how to remove yourself from that. And the only way to do that is through systems, technology, and hiring the right people, right? And then your time shifts from solving the problems that are popping up throughout the business to leading those systems and the vision and the team. For me, like I could do that 24/7, and it gives me energy versus takes energy from me, right? But when I have to deal with a customer service thing and our cleaning team, like we're going back and forth, like that actually does take energy from me. And even when I'm building, I spent the last couple of days building a few systems for our company. That took a lot of, like it wiped me out. I was exhausted because it's not really my skill set, right? But I realized like that's going to lead to growth in the company. So I put my effort into that. So I think the cost behind it all is growth, right? If you're in your business, you can have a mom and pop localized business where you're the baker making the bread every single day and selling it to your community, and your community loves it and they know who you are. And there's this connection between the baker and the bread. But if you want to open up 10 different locations around the country selling your bread, you can't be at every location doing that. You have to duplicate your process and your vision and your standards. So yeah, scale. If you can't remove yourself from it, you're restricting your growth, you're restricting your profit, and you're restricting your time freedom as well.
The difference between looking at your business as a job versus your business is an asset, like a machine that you're building. And I think there's two frameworks that are really useful. One comes from you and one comes from Jasper. Yours, you just brushed on quickly. It's really paying attention to what you're doing in the day and how much energy it gives or takes away. And you can touch on that more in a second. But the other piece that comes from Jasper, which is hilarious because this describes your difference in personalities and brain so well. He loves to look at each of the tasks that he's doing and assign a kind of a dollar value to it. Like, is this a $10 task or is this a $1,000 task? I should be working primarily in the $1,000 tasks, not in the $10 ones. Do you want to speak just a little bit more to the energy audit that you've done a few times?
Yeah, 100%. And it's so funny. I look at it like that as well, for sure. But in the day-to-day moment, I was on a podcast yesterday and kind of told my whole story of like how I got started at 18 and all these different businesses that I've started and failed at, and now how we ended up at Freewyld. And he's like, how do you do all this? Like, how do you stay in it? Like, how do you build it? How do you stay motivated? What I've learned through the process is like, to really lead a vision and a team and to be successful in entrepreneurship, it's all about energy management. You can't show up and lead a team and solve problems at a high level if you're partying at night or up late watching TV, chilling, and like you roll into the office at 10, 11, and you're just like, okay, let's just get to work. That stuff doesn't work. To like really play at the highest level, you got to be all in. And for me, I realized like there's tasks and items on my to-do list that steal energy from me. So like at the end of the day, I feel exhausted. I start doubting myself, the thoughts of like, am I doing the right thing? Blah, blah, blah. And like all of that negative stuff, or if I find myself kicking the can down the road on a certain task, I realize like this stuff is not bringing me energy. It's taking energy from me. Sometimes you have to put yourself in that position. It's like, just suck it up and get to work and solve the problem. But then knowing that I'm doing my absolute best to manage my energy, to put my effort into the things that give me energy that will have the biggest impact on the business, right? When I'm doing podcasts, when I'm leading team calls, when I'm, solving strategy challenges, when I'm, talking to potential clients, when I'm talking to current clients, when we're building our brand, when we're looking at real estate, talking to investors, that stuff gives me energy. The stuff that takes energy from me, but still is important for me to do, I'll block and schedule it. But that's the very first thing that I try to get out of the way so I can free up my day to work on the high level tasks in the business and the highest leverage within the business. And then lastly, like to Jasper's way of looking at it, is it a $10 task, a $100 task, a $1,000 task, a $10,000 an hour task? The goal there is to try to build systems for anything that's the $10 to $100 task. And then 100 up, you start hiring the best people to run those systems and those tasks. And then you focus on the highest value, the $10,000 an hour. It's a process to get there, but I think it's both. It's recognizing what gives you energy and takes energy, and then putting your effort on the highest value tasks in your business every day as much as possible.
I love both of those, especially energy management. Time management is such a buzzword in like the productivity, self-development space, but I have had the same experience. Energy management is so much more important. And perhaps TMI, but as a woman, like that energy is very different like throughout the month. So if you're not paying attention to that, you can just get stuck in the weeds and approach burnout and drain yourself. And that's true of men and women. So it's really, really important.
And let me just touch on that real quick, is like what I think is really important to what you just said is everything that we're saying here and everything that I'm sharing is what works for me. Right. It doesn't mean that it's going to work for you or anyone who's listening. The further I get into fitness and health, the more I learn that there's not one right way of doing it. It's what is right for you and your body and your lifestyle. Everyone has something completely different. I'm a true believer that it's the same thing for running your business, right? The way that you run your day to day is going to be a little bit different than mine. And paying attention to that is super important. Without a doubt, if I look at all the companies and like all my entrepreneur friends that have built businesses from the ground up, from all different sizes, the elements that are always present to that is clear vision, a product and a brand that works, and just unbelievable work ethic, right? We're talking about energy and what gives us energy and takes energy, but regardless of how you feel, you're still showing up and doing the actual work. So like that needs to be there, but the way that you do it can fluctuate based on who you are and how you desire to develop your own day to day. So I'm happy you brought that up, because I'm talking to Samantha about the same thing about her running her business. And she's like, I've been building it in such a masculine way. I want to do more of like a flowing way of running my business. So now we're crafting her way of doing that. Whatever works for you, but those elements of like clear vision, great product, great brand, and unbelievable work ethic needs to be there regardless of how you run your day to day.
I think this is a good time. Can you tell the story of Troy's growth and how those three things has really allowed him to reach this level of success that he's currently at? So Troy is one of our RPM clients. He's in Northern Michigan and is just an incredible entrepreneur. If you can take it from there, I think he's such a great example of what you're sharing.
Troy's amazing. Troy Daly from Elevated Homes and Hospitality out of Traverse City. First off, just an incredible human, incredible entrepreneur. He's got multiple businesses that are doing very well in his hometown. He came to us, Jasper and I don't even know, four or 5 years ago when he launched his business, his short-term rental business. He went through our training program, and then him and I worked one-on-one consulting wise. And then he was our very first RPM client that we brought this service to. And we started working with him when he had roughly about 19, 20 properties. Last year, when he started RPM, I think he was about 30, he got up to 30 properties or so. But he was in that hectic host spot where he does everything in house. He does property management, but he has cleaning in house. He has laundry in house. That's, very difficult to do, to run all those different parts of the business. But he was in multiple seats at one time. Since we've taken over his revenue management, we've also got him in the mindset of like, hey, your highest and best use is hiring the best people possible, because it's very hard to keep really good cleaners in any market, but specifically those types of markets where high vacation turnovers. Hire the best people and go get more properties. Go sell. Bring on more and be the best in your marketplace. It's been incredible. I think he just passed his 100th property. He's going to probably close out at 120 by the end of the year, 130 or so. He just surpassed his first $1 million month in bookings, first time ever. And I just spent some time with him in Park City at IMN, and I got inside his brain, and like those challenges are still there. He still has growth challenges, but the way that he's approaching it is completely different than when he first started. When he first started, he was doing all the things himself. Now he is available to jump in and solve problems, but he's leading the team members to solve the problems first, right? So it gives him the ability to be in the highest seat possible in his company, which is bringing on new homeowners and hiring new team members. And he's just leading those two things. And he's scaling like crazy. And the opportunities he's getting right now is unbelievable. But he's that kind of guy too, that he asks really good questions. He's always reaching out to people. He's learning what's working for them, and then he's adopting that into his lifestyle, right? So like the energy thing, same thing. Like he came here 2 years ago to my place and we did a whole VIP session mapping out his business. We had a long conversation about this energy, like what gives you energy, what takes energy, how you're living your lifestyle, and how a healthy lifestyle will impact your business in a positive way. Because if you have more physical energy and mental energy, you can solve bigger problems and move faster. And I haven't seen him since then. And when I ran into him in Park City, he looked like a completely different person. He lost over 60 pounds. He works out daily with the trainer every single day. He's just like having the best time of his life. And his business is a reflection of that. I really do think this stuff works. It takes time, but it also takes the willingness to learn it and implement it into the day-to-day.
When we started this conversation, I imagined that we were going to end up talking a lot about like delegate to team, create SOPs and all of those things. And those matter 100%. And we've touched on them already. But the things that we're talking about right now matter more. And I'm so glad that we're having this conversation, because it's one that doesn't happen enough. And it is a conversation, especially as a leader, as a CEO, you need to be thinking through this every single week. It's like, where am I spending my time? Am I relentlessly focused on the things that are going to grow my business? If that's your goal. Some people love having more of a lifestyle business where they have a job, they enjoy it, it's great, they don't have any intention of growing. But the CEOs that we work with, they have aspirations to scale and to grow and to continue to expand and to serve people on a really high level. And this is what it takes to get there. So I love that. Yeah. Do you have any other like super key, do not pass go without implementing some of these things? Like, is it hiring a team? Is it having those systems? Like, what else other than the energy and the awareness makes this possible?
We have a core value: systems equals freedom, right? And I truly believe that. And if you're brand new to like building systems and all of that, there's plenty of books out there and podcasts and trainings and consultants that can help build out systems. As we grow, it becomes harder and harder to do this. As a leader, I'm recognizing that the challenge, and I'm trying to figure out how to just embed it into our culture. But it's anything that you do more than once, we need a system for. And a system is a documented process, step by step, what to do. Because the whole goal is, as you start growing, you don't want to react off of memory, and you want to be able to pass down your process and your way of doing things to team members. We see this a lot, like short-term rental hosts, they'll have a couple of listings and then they start scaling, they're adding units to their portfolio. And one of the very first things they do is go out and hire a virtual assistant to help with customer service and moving parts. But then the biggest problem that comes from that is like our virtual assistants, they never do what I tell them to do, or they don't do it the way I want them to do it. The challenge is we're telling them to do it versus leading them through the system, right? Educating them through the system. So if there's anything that we do more than once, there should be a documented process around it, and then it's all education and driving your team to follow that system, right? It's not perfect. And as we grow, like one of the systems that we have is what we call our playbook. And it's very difficult to, I shouldn't say difficult. It's just challenging to stay up to date with the way we do things because we're moving so fast, right? So the game's not to be perfect. The game is to constantly grow and move forward and evolve, right? And part of that is that you're going to drop the ball sometimes and react off of memory versus defaulting to the system. But that's completely fine as long as you recognize like, okay, next time I got to follow this system. Does that make sense?
100%. It's an ongoing challenge. It's one that I deal with leading the marketing department as well. Like, it's so much faster the first time for you to just like do it and just like, all right, just get it done. But if you want to scale, if you want to grow, if that's your vision, you really do need to do the work of documenting and creating checklists, having systems where you can get what's in your brain as the person that has probably the most experience in whatever you're working with to other people and equip them for success, because we can't expect people to read our mind. It's really a communication thing where we have to be really proactive and as detailed as possible. And yes, it does slow you down in the short term to make space for this growth in the long term. And it, most importantly, gets you out of that hectic host hamster wheel that we were just talking about.
You know, when Jasper and I first started our business together and we created the playbook, it would take us days or weeks to create a play. A play equals a system, right? Step by step, what to do when something comes up. I developed a sales dashboard the other day. I built something like that in the past for a previous company that took me about a month to develop because it's a lot of moving parts and a lot of things that are connected. You got to pull in info, and this cell needs to talk to this cell and all this other stuff. And for someone who understands Excel, they could probably do it a lot faster, but you know, I'm not that talented at building these out. I was able to build that system within about 6 hours working on ChatGPT, right? So 6 hours compared to a month. And what I did was building the system didn't give me energy, but the thought of, okay, now the sales team and then the marketing team and like everyone will be able to understand what's happening in our company in real time. And then seeing how that can develop and scale and grow, like that was super exciting for me. So I got all the moving parts done in the beginning of the day, and I blocked out 6 hours on my calendar to get it done. And I got it done within 6 hours. Now we have a system that the team's using and is going to start growing, right? That stuff is awesome. But it took me to like sit down and be like, okay, this is not giving me energy, but I got to do this. My point of bringing this up is like, you can move really fast using ChatGPT. Just communicate into ChatGPT, hey, I want to develop a SOP for my team on this. I'm going to give you my notes, turn it into action steps, give descriptions, step by step what to do, and put it into a PDF form. And you're just talking to ChatGPT and what you want to get done. And then before you know it, you got a freaking system and you pass it out to your team. So it's a lot easier than we think it is.
And personally, as somebody that has a relatively disorganized brain, ChatGPT is such a lifesaver because I can ask it to add in more detail than what my brain typically operates in. I see things in broad strokes and like big vision. It is so helpful to be able to augment that tendency of mine with like the specificity and the concreteness that ChatGPT can create seemingly out of thin air. It's really magical. Let's speak a little bit more to the delegation or like ownership aspect. Like we saw with Troy, getting something like revenue management off of your plate can be massive. One of our best performing ads that we've run in the past for RPM is CEOs shouldn't be pricing their STRs. And when you have that realization that you need to get something off of your plate, what is the process to bringing somebody in to own that seat and that result?
Well, I think it's one of the most important things as you grow a company or a department is to recognize what is your highest value skill set that you can bring forward, right? And be completely okay with recognizing like, this is not a skill set I have. And then the question needs to become, is this a skill set that I need to develop? And do I want to develop this? Right. The best way of looking at this is like bookkeeping for most people, right? Every single business owner has bookkeeping. We have to file taxes. We have accounting, all of this stuff. That can be a skill set for every single CEO out there, is learning how to keep your own books. But 99, I'm making this up, 99.99% of CEOs out there, what do? They hire a bookkeeper who has the skill set and the systems to do it. And you want to make sure that you hire the right bookkeeper and you lead that person to make sure that they're not making mistakes and you understand the process, but you're checking in, you're checking out, but you're not the one leading it. That's the best way I can explain this, is you got to look at your business. Like, you need bookkeeping in your business, without a doubt. It's one of the most important things in our businesses. But the first thing we do is we hire somebody who has the skill set and the systems to do it, right? And the time. We have to do the exact same thing in every part of our business. Again, the new RPM client that we just enrolled today, she has over 100 properties and she's scaling like crazy. She's still doing her pricing. And she's like, yeah, I do it. Doesn't take me much time. I have a pricing tool. It's fine. I said, okay, let us do the audit. And once we did the audit, we found $385,000 that we believe we can add to her portfolio. So I said to her, I'm like, you choosing to do this is costing you $385,000. So that is insane to me to think about. And as soon as I showed that to her, I'm like, we're going to come in here. Yes, we have a fee to this, but we're still adding multiple six figures to your business, and you're freeing up the time and the brain space, recognizing that you have somebody who owns it, right? So the same way that business owners look at bookkeeping and now should look at revenue management, we should also look at the other parts of our business to recognize what are major moving parts of our business that we don't have a skill set in, or is not the best use of my time. Customer service is typically one of those parts, right? If you're growing your business, you can't be the one who's responding to every single guest issue. You should be the person who, when your team member gets it to a point and there's a red flag, can come and tap you on the shoulder to come in and solve the problem. Right? That's the best way to think about it, right? Elon Musk is a good example of this. When he launched SpaceX, what he does in all his companies, he goes out and hires CEOs to run the day-to-day of the business. And there's that famous photo of him standing in the hangar with his first rocket that they shot up that exploded. And there's just millions of pieces just laid out. And you see him there just staring at all the pieces. His highest and best use in his time is being a world-class engineer in his business. Right? It's a little bit different now. He's at a different stage, but when he first launched that business, he needed to be boots on the ground, hands into the product as an engineer. He didn't need to be head of marketing, sales, fundraising. That's not his highest and best. His highest and best was creating the perfect product that can do what it's doing now. Like, we watched a SpaceX launch just the other day from our balcony. It was freaking awesome to see. I'm like, this is crazy that this guy's just shooting off rockets into space. Like, that's his business. The only way he got there was putting his time in the best use possible. And then the first thing he does is hire a CEO to run the business. And he puts his effort into the highest and best use of his time. So that's what I would recommend for everybody, is to audit your business. Where do you have a unique skill set that you can bring forward that will impact your business? And then what's one of the first things you can get off your desk? Typically, they're the $10 tasks, $100 tasks, $1,000 tasks, right? Where you hire the bookkeeper, you hire the revenue managers, you hire the customer service reps, and you're focused on acquisition, or you're focused on sales, or you're focused on marketing, whatever that is. So I think that's really important, is doing a time and skill set audit on your business.
I think that's a fantastic place to close with, because that is exactly what everybody that is listening should do right now. Stop living in the day-to-day, zoom out a little bit, and really think critically. In a perfect world, we are going to hire people that are much better at us in even things that we're good at. Like, we want people who are going to come in and raise the bar for our business. But we can't do that if we're clasping everything really, really close to the chest because we have ego around how well we're doing something. Really, really important. So, for those of you that are listening and desire more spaciousness and to take revenue management off of your plate and get it into the hands of experts who treat it like their own, are in every listing every day, we offer a free revenue report. Like Eric was mentioning, we found over 300,000 in that last lead that, or now client that you were talking to. And we can do the exact same thing for you. We'll look under the hood and see exactly where you're missing opportunities and gauge how much we think that you can grow. So that's at freewildfoundry.com/report, and highly recommend that for anybody that's in the scaling stage trying to get out of the hectic host in all of these areas.
That's
Thank
right.
you. Yes, heck yes. Eric, anything you want to add or close with before we sign off?
No, that's it. For everyone who's listening, obviously we're putting a lot of effort into getting the podcast out there again and growing. So if you're not a subscriber, subscribe to this, leave us a review. That helps a lot. And then reach out to us. Let us know what topics you want us to talk about. We're going to be doing quite a bit. Kaye, you and I will be continuing this show within Get Paid for Your Pad. Jasper is going to be doing a weekly show. And then randomly, I'm going to be interviewing some of the top CEOs in the hospitality industry. So if there's any topics, anything that you guys want to hear or anyone that you want us to interview, let us know. Reach out to us. All right, y'all.